Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight to spend some time with us. If you are here to learn more about the Foundation Year program, you are in the right place. So I'm just going to get us started quickly, and then we'll get into speaking to the people you actually want to hear from. If you don't know me, my name is Kaylee, and I work at King's in recruitment. A few of you prospective students may already or probably know what I look like, so you're probably a little bored to see me, but I'm promised I'm joined by some really special guests tonight. Before we get started, I'm going to give a quick land acknowledgement. So the University of King's College sits on unceded Mi'kmaq territory, subject to the peace and friendship treaties that call for peaceful coexistence and good relations among all those that live in Mi'kma'ki. And the University of King's College also recognizes the histories, contributions, and legacies of the African Nova Scotian people who've been here for over 400 years. And because I'm in Toronto, I would like to acknowledge that I live on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. I'm also acknowledged that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And I also think it's important to note that all these lands are now home to diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. So just as a note of housekeeping, before I start, our panel today is Dr. Tim Clark, Associate Director of Student Support, Dr. Maria Ochner, Senior Fellow of the Foundation Year Program, and Dr. Neil Robertson, the Director of the Foundation Year Program. So we're going to have a quick presentation followed by a question period. If you have any questions during this time, please put them in the Q&A and we'll address them at the end. I'm also joined today by my lovely and talented colleague Keenan from Student Advising, and he can answer all your questions about course registration, scheduling, that kind of thing. Just put them in the Q&A or the chat and he'll help you out. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Neil Robertson, who will begin the presentation.
Hello, welcome. It's really lovely to be having a chance to connect with you. And I know that probably the real meat and potatoes of tonight is going to be in the question and answer session. But I just want to say a few words. All three of us are going to say a few words to kind of remind you of the Foundation Year program and talk about some of the things that you can be looking forward to and anticipating, get into a few more details now that you are enrolled and to help you sort of prepare yourselves for the adventure that awaits you. So I just want to say a few words about the shape of the Foundation Year program. One thing is the first point I want to talk about is this notion of the optimism and the ambition of FYP, which is that at the very heart of the Foundation Year program is the belief that we're really learning together. And that goes down to the very roots of our pedagogical philosophy, which is that we read texts together. And that means that, as I say when I'm with students in a tutorial, that while I may, be slightly thinner on top, have a few more wrinkles than the rest of you, we nonetheless are all equals in the face of the text that we're reading. And so you can have an insight that I've never had, and we can have a conversation that brings to light things that have never been thought about with this material, and we all have to go back to the same basis. So from that point of view, we're not in the position of simply kind of feeding you information and you receiving it and then you reproducing the information. It's really a kind of work of investigation and discovery that we're all participants in. And that entails this belief, that this ambition for you, this belief in you, that you are fully capable of taking on this material, reading these great and wonderful works. Certainly there are many other wonderful works to read, but at least this selection of wonderful works that allow you to enter into this history, this development, this, as we're going to later say, this odyssey of inquiry as we go from the ancient world to the contemporary world. And that that confidence in our students and that confidence in the material that we're looking at really underlies the whole thing. We've been doing this now for more than 50 years, and it has a ethos and tradition of engaging in this kind of collective learning. So the three things that really characterize what the foundation program are is that we all read the material. There's the assigned readings, and you now have access to the book list for this year. And when you arrive, you'll get your handbooks, and you'll see the schedule of reading to be done. Sometimes people say, should I be reading things in advance to get ready? I don't worry too much about that. The program is meant to be do it as you come along with, the readings while there's significant readings, but nonetheless they've been carefully selected and sorted out so that you're going to be capable of doing the readings as we progress through the year. If you want to read the Epic of Gilgamesh in advance, that's probably a good idea. If you want to take a look at some of the other texts, go ahead. But there's an advantage to having that material fresh as you are encountering things. And then the second thing we do is have lectures. And the lecturers in the Foundation Year program are one of the great things about FYP is that you're exposed to far more a larger variety of lectures than you'd have probably in any other first year that you might encounter. And the lecturers are there not to lord it over you, to kind of give you the truth about this material, but really to provide a kind of educated, scholarly based introduction to allow you to have better access to what those texts are about. And that's really at the heart of what the lectures seek to do. And in that sense, they really prepare you for what in a sense is the culmination of the Foundation Year program, which is the tutorials, where you'll have a chance to discuss the material with your fellow students. And tutorial is very much a space of give and take. There's a kind of way of comporting yourself that's crucial to that, which is being open to the views and perspective of others, while also having an opportunity for you to contribute your thoughts in the growing discussion. And in that sense, encountering these things in a shared way. So those are the kind of three pillars. And then there are a number of ways in which you come to make that material your own, and certainly tutorial is a place that happens. But really, a special emphasis is put on, this is what I'm calling the odyssey of essay writing, which is that we view essay writing as not simply a means to, test your knowledge, to evaluate you. There's a component of that. But really the heart of essay writing and what makes it so important is that it's the place in which you are challenged to articulate your insight into an important work in a sustained and developed sense. And that's not something that you can do right away. It is something that you'll learn to do over the course of the year. So everybody that comes into the Foundation Year program discovers that probably the grade they get on their first essay is not the grade they're used to getting in high school. But that should be really just your sense of that's where I'm beginning. There's an apprenticeship, is one of the ways I put it, in learning how to develop and articulate an essay, an academic paper that you're going to come to do because you're going to do it 12 times over the course of the year. And we take fully into account the progress and development you make as you grow in your ability to understand and then communicate your understanding of what is at work in the material in front of you. So maybe we can look at the next slide. So just to give you a sense, right, just you probably all know this, but just to remind you, there are 6 sections in the foundation year program: the ancient world, the medieval world that I'm actually the coordinator of, and then the Renaissance and Reformation that Maria Euchner is the coordinator of, and then the era of the Age of Reason, which is the 17th and 18th centuries. And then there's the era of revolutions, which is really kind of long 19th century from the French Revolution to World War I. And then finally the contemporary world, and Tim Clark is the coordinator of that section. And that gives you the shape and structure of this odyssey as we move through. And one of, again, in a way, part of the philosophy of the program is that we try to teach each section and each text in every section, each book in each section, in its own terms as much as we can. And we allow the changes and development. So what I say is when I'm teaching Plato, I'm a Platonist. And when I'm teaching Nietzsche, who is a complete opponent of Plato, I'm a Nietzschean. And we try and enter into their world. And then you, the students, have the opportunity of making your judgments about how to measure and compare and relate those different figures, those different sections to one another. Are we looking at a history of progress? Are we looking at a history of decline? There's all sorts of ways that you can enter into that odyssey, that development. And of course, you can be doing the foundation year program as an art student. That's probably the vast majority of you, or as a science student, in which case you're doing the 3-credit version of the foundation year program. Or for the journalism students, this forms the 80% of your first year. And we're aware for each of those groups of students, there's challenges and ways that you bring a particular perspective into the foundation program. And again, that mixture helps to really enrich the life of the program. And so sometimes people will say, what's a typical day in the foundation year program? So 9:30 to 11:30, we have the lecture, and with a break, we have a sacred moment of a break, 10 minutes in the middle of that. But even just as you come into the foundation year program, one of the wonderful gifts that Maria Euchner gives to us is that she provides a music list, a playlist of music that's been curated, chosen for the lecturer. And sometimes it's interesting to try and figure out what is going on in Maria Euchner's mind when she picks a particular piece of music. I'll leave that for you to sort out. And then we have our lecture. And then after that, either at 11:30, 12:30, or 1:30, you'll go into a tutorial where there'll be 15 students. And you'll have a tutor who will lead that discussion. Because of the 6 sections, you don't have 6 different tutors. You stay with the same group, but you have a main tutor who you'll meet 3 times over the course of the year. And in the other 3 sections, you'll have 3 different tutors. So there's both continuity with a main tutor, but also this sense of experiencing other teaching philosophies, ways of developing a tutorial. So that's kind of your typical day in terms of the main things. And then once you're done, by 12:30, 1:30 or 2:30, you're on to the next day, and you can be reading. And we also do some other events, but that's kind of your typical day. So I should probably stop. I probably spent more time saying things than I should have, and hand you over to Tim Clark, who, Tim.
Okay, thank you for that, Neil. And it's lovely to be here and to, well, not see any of you, but for you to see me for potentially the first time, and won't be the last time, I'm sure. Many of you will have opportunity to speak to me quite frequently throughout the year. I'm Tim Clark. I'm the Associate Director of Student Support. So there are a number of reasons why you might come to me. The most common will be for setting up academic accommodations. So if you have a long-term or an ongoing issue that requires accommodation, there are two things that you'll do. One is you will set up formal accommodations through student accessibility at DAO. And at the same time, you'll come to me and try to set up interim accommodations in FIP. And so part of my role is to help you do that. And we can do that even before you're sorted out on the DAO side. So any issues that you have that you'd like to speak with me that might require our assistance throughout the year, I'm the person that you would come to do that with. I'm also the person you would come to see about assignment extensions. So FIP is a little bit unusual in the sense that your individual tutors won't be in a position to grant you extensions if you need them. All of that is centralized in FIP, much to the mercy of your tutors who don't have to make those decisions in the office of the Associate Director of Student Support. So if you require an extension for any reason, you would get in touch with me as early as possible. The earlier, the better. And just lay out your, you can come to my office and we can have an in-person meeting, or you can email me, we can talk by phone, whatever works for you. And you just lay out your reasons for needing the extension, and we can talk about how we might be able to assist you. And another big piece of what the Associate Director of Student Support does is offer referrals to other academic and non-academic supports on campus. So you may have an issue that, especially coming new to a university in your first year, if I think about where I was in my first year, I didn't know who to go to for anything. I didn't know what was where. So you may find yourself in a situation where you know that you need help with something, but you don't know where to turn. And you're welcome to come to me, and I can do my best to direct you wherever might be helpful for you. And this will get easier over time. But you'll come to learn quite quickly that we have a pretty extensive series of supports on campus available for our students. So for instance, we have the accessibility officer, Michelle Mahoney. We have the student support advisor, Isaac Wright, the sexual health and safety officer, Jordan Roberts, and the indigenous support and outreach coordinator, Emily Picto Roberts. So these are some of the people who I may refer you to depending on the nature of your issue. Or, if you need academic advising, I may direct you to the registrar's office. And if you need an introduction to the proper people to speak to, I'm happy to facilitate that for you. I'm happy to walk you over to where you need to go. So if you need some assistance that I can't help you with directly, I will make sure that you get where you need to go. Okay, next slide. So I'll also talk a little bit about the nature of the grades in FIP. As you may have some sense of already, the pace in FIP is fast and furious. It can be quite daunting at first, but you'll adjust to it as time goes on. And this is sort of, we observe this every year. Students do develop a sense of the pacing that works for them in FIP. So FIP is a writing intensive program. We write essays every 2 weeks or so. And our essays are almost always some variation of a quotation and then the prompt discuss. So you're kind of thrown in to the to some central idea of the text that then you need to articulate an argument over. So you'll get a sense as time goes on of what the FIP essay as a genre actually looks like, but we do those every 2 weeks or so. So that's the bulk of your grade. There are also oral exams at the end of the fall and winter terms. And these are oftentimes, especially once the first oral exam comes around, students can be a bit nervous about it, especially if they haven't done any kind of oral presentation before. But I think by and large, students feel a lot better about the winter orals because they have a sense of what that activity looks like. And it can be a very engaging and a very enlivening kind of exercise. I know it sounds perverse to say this at this point, but you'll see what I mean. The oral exam is an opportunity for you to have a rigorous discussion about the material that you've read throughout the term. And it's not every day in your life that you get an opportunity just to sit in a room with some people who are also passionate about books and ideas and talk about those ideas. So it can be a really great experience. And the other piece is tutorial attendance and participation. So tutorial attendance is tracked in class by your tutor. So as Neil was saying, one of the hearts of the program is the tutorial, and we take very seriously the idea that a tutorial really has to have a certain mass of people to function as a tutorial. So tutorial attendance is mandatory. It is tracked in class by tutors, and lates and absences are handled by a student declaration form this year. And if you have ongoing reasons for absence that you'd like to discuss with me, or that you need referral to some other support on campus for, I'm happy to, as I said, provide, happy to run interference for you on that. Okay. I believe this is the point where I pass you off to Dr. Eugner, so I will do that now.
Yes, thank you so much, Tim, and welcome everybody. It's nice to be talking to you, although I must say it's very strange not to see any faces. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the details of tutorials. So most of it has already been said, I think, but tutorials are small, intimate groups of students. So there'll be about 15 in each group this year. And yeah, as Dr. Robertson already mentioned, the tutorial is really the heart of the foundation year in many ways. Of course, you have to have read and engaged in the texts in order to make a lively and a meaningful discussion happen. And that's what we do in tutorial. And so the thing that I think, is probably very new to a lot of students is the fact, at least I always say in my tutorial, there isn't really, a right or wrong, because when you talk about texts, it's about how you read the text. And so this is what we're trying to explore together. And this is why, every year, no matter how often we teach the same text, like for the tutorial stuff, there aren't 2 years that are the same, because every student, every person reads a text differently, and this is what makes the discussion so exciting. And of course, this means that tutorials depend on your contributions, your readings, and even if you feel shy at the beginning, or perhaps in general, you can always perhaps come up with discussion questions and send them to your tutors in form of an email if speaking in class is an issue. But just try to be engaged, because that is when you get the most out of it. It's as Dr. Robertson said, it's a give and take. So however much you put into it is what you will get out of it. And those discussions tend to be absolutely fun and engaging. And it's really something that I don't know, I think all of us in the tutorial stuff are really thriving on that, on the energy that is created by varying ways of reading a text. So the point is not to agree. It's not to create one reading of the text that makes the most sense, that everybody subscribes to, but in fact, quite the opposite, I would say. What makes it fun is to have different readings come together, maybe collide, maybe complement each other, but what we're avoiding a homogeneous way of dealing with the text. And tutorials are really the place where lasting friendships are made. This is absolutely true. And, you know, people often who are in tutorials together will become roommates, you know, for later on. And it's, you know, you grow together in this group because you stay in the same group, you change your tutors, but this is the place where you know, you drop your inhibitions perhaps, or you become inspired by things that other people say, or you really disagree with them and you want to, you know, keep the discussion going outside tutorial. Anyway, tutorials are really the places where a lot of ideas, seeds for things are sort of planted, and you can watch, and sometimes we can see over the course of the year these seeds turn into beautiful flowers. So anyway, the tutorials are great fun generally. So maybe we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, okay. Let's talk a little bit about life on campus. So the campus at King's is small and intimate. Everybody knows everybody. And that can be both a blessing and a curse sometimes. Anyway, there are lots of student-run initiatives, student societies for any sorts of interest. So there is dance, there's theater, there might be meditation. It's basically whatever you think you would like to share with others. You know, you can start a society and and just make it grow. So there's lots of that going on campus. We also have Read Now, which is a little bit more directly related to FYP. And that is something that we actually started doing during the COVID year when we were all on Zoom. And it was a way of bringing the community together and just creating a bit a stronger feeling of togetherness. In a way, we're in this together, and we've kept it going. So it's basically whenever we read a play the night before, ideally, we would get together and you know, whoever's interested, this is not obligatory, we would get together and do a dramatic reading, and those can be extremely fun and silly. And you know, it's a nice way of getting the reading done for the night, but you don't have to do, or for the next day rather, you don't have to do it on your own. Or if you're, you know, not feeling so motivated, it's nice to be together with your peers and do together and have some fun. They've never not been fun. We also have a number of night FYP events, we call them. So these are FYP adjacent events. They're not obligatory, which is why they take place in the evening. And they tend to be sort of cultural exploration. So Dr. Robertson is in charge of organizing them. And I think what we have lined up for this year is one night for section 1, we have a Sappho evening, Sappho, the Greek poet, who excites students every year usually. In section 2, we have, I don't know, Neil, remind me, please. Do we have a musical event for section 2?
Yeah, so in section 1, we have the Sappho event, but we also there's an Epic of Gilgamesh play that's being performed this year, and we have tickets for that that we're going to give to students. And in section 2, there's we'll have a medieval chant night, and we're still developing some of the ideas, so there's all sorts of things we're planning, but I don't want to say too much because I don't want to disappoint anybody if something falls through.
Those tend to be really wonderful, and they're very complementary to the FYP curriculum, and I think sometimes even have the potential to make us understand a text or even a section a little bit more clearly, you know, as soon as you shine sort of a slightly different light on it, maybe, you know, things will reveal themselves or become clear. I find them always really inspiring. And one more point to make is formal meals which take place. So this is campus focused rather than FIP focused, but you will be eating in Prince Hall, and formal meals take place maybe once a term or twice a term. I don't remember. Yeah. And that's when you get to dress up in your gowns, look like Harry Potter and his friends, and be served, you know, with a nice dinner. And the hall is made to look very nice too, with candlelight sometimes. And yeah, it's a really, you know, nice way to eat your meal with your friends. And other night events, there are things. We have we have the Wardy, which is a hangout place. It's like a cafeteria during the daytime. There's the galley where you can grab some lunch if you can't make it to your Prince Hall meal, or if you're a day student, for example, you can meet your friends in the Wardy, grab a lunch there. It's all student run, which is really lovely. And then at night, it serves as a bar, and there are events happening, like something like Big Night, for example, where people display their talents in music or comedy, whatever you have. But there's lots going on. You will never get bored, I don't think. Yeah, can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so something else that is FIP related is the FIP writing coach, who is a person where we're looking for someone right now, and they will be able to help you with any aspects of your written work. So the FIP essays, Dr. Clark already mentioned. When you get your first essay prompt, you will probably wonder, what on earth do I do with this? Because all you get is a quote, and then it just says discuss, and you know it's a very different from a high school essay. And a writing coach is someone who will know the FIP essay, that particular genre, and will be able to help you brainstorm ideas, you know, come up with a thesis. Like, what does a thesis statement for a FIP paper look like, or rather, perhaps, what doesn't it look like? You know, you can also give them your introductions. You can also give those to your tutors, by the way, and also work with final drafts with a writing coach. And the writing coach sets up usually one-on-one meetings with the students throughout the academic year. And yeah, I think this has been a service that's been very appreciated by students, because, you know, as we've now said on several occasions, the FIP essay is a very particular beast that needs to be understood, and the writing coach can help you with that. So I think I'm going to stop talking here.
Hi, thank you so much for all that information. I just have to talk for a little bit more, and then we can get into the question period. So at King's, we have academic services. Academic services are separate from the services that Tim Clark provides. They're mostly for course registration, planning your degree, credit hours, all those kinds of questions come to the academic services in the registrar's office. We also have peer academic advisors who are pictured here. Miranda and Maggie will be with us in the fall, but Sarah, who's in the purple sweater, is actually going to be the King's Student Union president. So she'll be running the campus, I suppose. They offer peer-to-peer connection and a student-centric perspective, as well as my colleagues like Keenan, who is a regular kind of worker within the office. If you have any questions about course registration, we ask that you email registrar@ukings.ca or book an online advising appointment. We have lots of time right now to answer those questions, and it's important that we deal with course registration and questions about that now, rather than when you come in the fall and are kind of caught up in the excitement that is the foundation year program. So this is a question we get a lot of. Where do you get your FYP books? So you can get your foundation year program books from several places. When you get the book list, something that is important to note is that there are particular editions and translations that you should source. You can get them at used bookstores. They're also secondhand, available from previous FYP students. You can also collect them on Amazon, I think, sells them, even though I don't know if people want to patronize Amazon anymore. But you can also get them from the King's Co-op bookstore. So it's a small business on campus. It's a place where students work. So you'd be supporting a business that employs students. And if you order from there, you will for sure get the right editions and translations. So this is a question we've been getting a lot. If you order all your books from the King's Co-op bookstore, you have the option of picking them all up the day you move in. However, if you are a keener and you really want to start reading your FYP books, you can ask in the notes for your purchase to have the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the first text you'll be reading, be sent to you, and then the other books will be kept in the bookstore for you to pick up when you move in on move-in day. So orientation week at King's, we are so lucky to have it be actually completely student run. So it means that we aren't telling you what to do and how to have fun. It's actual students running it. There are events like movies under the stars. I think there's a poetry night. There's all sorts of different social gatherings for people with different sort of energy levels. So there's some really high energy events, really interactive ones. I think there's the scavenger hunt. There's a scavenger hunt that happens if you're a little bit more social, a little more energetic. There's more kind of like low energy nights, like poetry under the stars, all sorts of different things. It's a great way to learn about King's and make new friends. You'll also get to learn about student societies at King's and Dalhousie. So you get to start sort of exploring the options at both universities. A final note, it is very important over the next few months that you keep checking your student email. Check it frequently. All the emails, all the messages that we want to send you will be sent to that email. So please check it. Another thing to note is that this year, a student from the incoming class has created an Instagram page called UKC Halifax 2028. It's a place where students can share their pictures and a little blurb, kind of a short profile about them. There's already a few students that I recognize who've posted their profiles. So yeah, feel free to check it out, follow it. It's, again, student run, and it's just a way to get to know some of your peers. Yeah. So now I think we're going to go into our question period. Thank you so much for sticking around. And I am going to choose the first question, which I saw and just thought, what a perfect way to start. Out of curiosity, how is the foundation year program contending with working around or with generative AI tools? This feels like a great question to start off with. So I don't know which one of the panelists would like to start, but feel free to jump in.
Well, I could say something and then the others might have something to add. So the foundation year program takes the very definite view that we don't want you using AI in any point in writing your essay. So this may be sort of show that we've got our heads in the sand, but the basic philosophy is that we're trying to help you think for yourself. And the very nature of AI is that something else is doing your thinking for you. And so what our basic principle is that, no, you're not supposed to be using AI precisely because we want that thinking and creative process, that engagement with the material to be really genuinely yours. There's lots of other opportunities for, you can talk about your ideas with your friends, with your tutor, with the writing coach, all those interactive social ways of doing it. But we really want that thinking to be a human thinking, if I can put it that way, at its heart. And so if you do make use of AI and it is recognized as such, that will affect that will create issues in terms of what we call academic integrity. So you don't want to go that route. You want to engage in the program, which is really fundamentally about an opportunity to think for yourself and engage in those moments of reflection that are becoming so much more difficult as our world becomes more and more involved in sort of computer-generated stimulation. We're in a way asking you to take a break from that at the heart of this, in terms of the kind of learning we're trying to open up for you. But I don't know whether Tim or Maria have anything to say.
Yeah, I would just add to that in a program like FYP, although it may be difficult to detect AI usage, I mean, the cost comes at some point, regardless. In part because FYP builds into its evaluation the oral exams. So at some point in the year, at two very specific points in the year, in fact, you will be in a room alone with two of your instructors, and you will have to make an account of yourself about the material. And that is going to be a much more terrifying experience if you have not written your essays by yourself than it is if you've sat and wrestled and thought with that material. It doesn't have to be a terrifying experience at all, and in fact, for many students, it isn't. So the oral exams make sure that we are that there is a part of the evaluation that is in fact not replicable by AI. And I would just say also that as difficult as it is to detect each and every instance of AI usage, our track record, I think, is quite good at detecting instances where students have used AI. So it's not the case that it's easy for this to kind of go under the radar. So there are a number of ways that cashes out.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, actually, I was going to raise exactly the same point, the oral exams. I mean, writing the essay yourself, wrestling with the text, building an argument, that is something that can really serve you in the oral exam, because sometimes you might be asked about a particular text that you wrote your essay on, and then you're lucky. But it also obviously helps you, connect different texts and the sections in a way that you wouldn't if you didn't engage, or if you let AI engage with a text. And it's not really an engagement anyway. And the other thing is, and this is really important, is that you will receive feedback on each of your essays. And the engagement with the feedback is also something that can really set you up very well for the oral exams. And so it's because that's a discussion. And, that's a discussion you could bring to the oral exam, for example. So yeah, it's absolutely not worth it to let a machine write the essay for you.
Thank you for giving us such a great, almost philosophical question to start this off. We have another question in the chat, which is, which programs or departments will FYP cover the introductory prerequisite courses for upper years, and which will require entry courses on top of FYP? So if you are interested in doing a program in the Faculty of Arts or Social Sciences, so philosophy, English, etc., generally speaking, in those programs, FYP will serve as a prerequisite for those programs. In journalism, you will need to do the first year journalism course, and if you are FYP journalism student, you should have already registered for that course, and you have to do it anyway. For the foundation year program in science, you typically need a math and 2 sciences, I believe. The way the foundation year program is structured, students are usually able to do a math and a science, and will typically use the summer between the foundation year program and second year to get that second science credit, so they can advance as planned throughout their science degree in 4 years. If you have any other questions about that, Keenan is in the chat, so feel free to post those questions there. I'm not seeing any other questions in the Q&A, but I do have a few questions that I just know students. Oh, we have a question here. Do example essays from the FYP genre exist to study or understand? Such as no longer, like, I think it's, do we have a record of FYP essays that we can share? And I think I know the answer, but I'll let you go.
Yeah, so it's sort of like the AI question in another way, which is we don't have a body of essays for you to take a look at. I mean, there are former students who can share their essays with you to their heart's content, but we again don't. We want you to be working at this and not sort of having a blueprint there that you're trying to somehow match, and that we've got some model here over here of the perfect essay, and if you don't, and we're trying to get you to fit into that model. All of that takes away from the way in which we're asking you to discover. So we will help you understand what a well-structured essay is about. The writing coach gives a session for all of the students right at the beginning of the year about that. You can talk with your tutors about that. And as I said, the foundation year program, I think of as having 2 levels. One is that it's this program about this development from the ancient to the contemporary world. And the other is that it is a kind of apprenticeship in how to write an essay. And really, it's by doing that we do the learning. And so it's you will develop those skills as you go along, and you'll internalize them. And by discovering what works as an argument for you, you'll come to structure it. If you're always looking at an outside model, you're not really going to make it your own, if I can put it that way. But that I think is at the heart of what we do. So that can be frustrating. I know that there can be frustrations with that, but the frustrations are there to help generate your freedom to think on your own.
Yeah, and maybe to add to that, just briefly, is that each tutor, so I mean, there's every tutor, tutors agree in terms of what makes a good FYP essay or a well-structured FYP essay, but there are individual preferences that tutors have, for certain details, and they vary too, which also means that using a FYP essay as a model or as an example doesn't really help, because it may not really satisfy whatever it is that a particular tutor is really rewarding or really looking for.
Yeah, and if you think about, let's say you have a model in front of you and you write to that model. That model may have received an A range grade, but in a program like FYP, where we are not, we're not teaching you necessarily to write history essays or literature essays or essays yet from a specific discipline. That'll come down the road in your future education. An A range essay could look quite different from that model that you have, right? So there is no kind of one path to an A in FYP. There are multiple paths, to such an extent that if we were even to provide a model for that A range paper, I think that would be more distorting than anything else, right? There's so many branching paths there for you to go down. And as Neil is saying, it really benefits you to work from to work up to the FYP essay organically, right? To produce it from within your own thought process rather than imagining it as a set of pre-existing criteria to be hit. There are obviously criteria. It is graded at the end of the day, but there's a fair bit of flexibility as to what it could actually look like.
Yeah, and just to maybe reiterate something that Dr. Robertson said earlier, we're most interested in your own development as a writer, and that can only be traced, if you take risks, which sometimes work out really well, and sometimes maybe not so well, but that is part of the apprenticeship, so to speak, of the Odyssey.
Yes, excellent. Thank you for those answers. We have another question in Q&A. So I know we all have lots of lecturers for FYP, but are these lecturers different from the professors? Who will our professors be, and how can we get to know or contact them if needed during the year? So I think this question is asking what's the difference between a lecturer and a tutor. So
Great.
I'm not sure which one of you wants to jump on that question.
Maybe I can have a quick go at it. So the lecturers are coming from within King's, but also Dalhousie and even further abroad. We are flying a couple of our lecturers in. And so they're there for 2 hours from 9:30 to 11:30. Sometimes they give multiple lectures, but often it's just a single lecture. And they are usually have an expertise in the material that they're talking about. And one of the lovely things is at the end of each week, the lecturers participate in what's called general tutorial. That happens from 3:30 to 4:30. Maria Euchner is going to be hosting it. And that's a chance when the students, it's all voluntary, nobody has to come to this, but the students have a chance to engage and talk to the lecturers directly. And the lecturers are always interested. They can, you can email them or anything like that. But the lecturers do their lectures for 2 hours, but the people you really engage with are the tutors, who are full-time faculty. So all of us are tutors in the foundation year program, as well as holding our various administrative roles. And we're full-time, and we may not be experts on everything that you're going to encounter, but what we have done is being exposed to the foundation year program. And so our job is kind of to facilitate, be kind of the person in between, in a sense, the lecturers, the material, the books, and you, the students, and sort of help that whole process. I don't know whether that helps.
Yeah, I think that summed it up. And then there's a follow-up question, which is how often do lecturers alternate? And if I understand your answer, you have a different lecturer each day. You may have a repeat lecture, or a lecturer may lecture a few times within the overall program, but for the most part, you'll have someone different each day, is my understanding.
That's basically true. So there are 6 sections. Each section has a coordinator, and the coordinator is responsible for giving a kind of shape to that section. And so the coordinators often appear more than once in their sections to help give that sense of shape to it. And then there are people who lecture in more than one section. And so it's a bit of a mixed bag. There's some people you'll see, a number of times, other people you'll see just once. But nonetheless, we work at trying to create a sense of continuity and connection.
Yeah,
There are
it's
also
a lot of
some texts. There are some texts that we explore over more than one day, and that will usually be the same lecture.
So the Odyssey will be your first 3 lecture text.
It's a lot of variety, which is what I tell students when they ask me about all the different lectures. So I have another question. I believe this is for Tim. If we need to miss or be late to tutorial, so for illness, who do we notify, and is emailing ahead recommended? And I guess one of the sub questions within this is, what's the kind of time frame you would like to have for if someone needs an extension or needs to be absent from tutorial?
Sure, great question. So As far as notifying about attendance in particular, so if you have to be late or if you, especially if you have to miss a tutorial, this year that's handled by a declaration form that will inform your tutorial leader, so the tutor for your tutorial. And by extension, I'll also be able to monitor that as well. So submitting that declaration form will effectively notify your tutor. So you don't need to email on top of that if you've made a submission. If you anticipate that you will have a long-term range of absences and you want to talk about the ramifications of that in terms of how do you catch up on material, so on and so forth, I would encourage you to set up a meeting with me just so that we can talk through any concerns you might have about that. But that's not necessarily for notification purposes so much as just your peace of mind and our peace of mind that we're serving you effectively. For extensions, you'll want to get in touch with, so for extensions, you would bring all of those questions to me. And so if you bring them to your tutor, they're just going to forward you to me anyway. So you might as well come to me to begin with. Look, some issues happen unexpectedly, and I think everyone is understanding of that. So if an emergency arises at the very last minute that requires you to take some extra time with your assignment, I have all the sympathy in the world for that, and I think leeway is justified there. If it's something that is predictable for your just so that your tutors can plan ahead and know what to expect, you want to be submitting requests for extensions or setting up meetings with me for extensions as early as you know that you'll need the extra time, right? So as soon as you know, try to make sure that I know, and then we can talk out what that extension might look like.
One thing worth mentioning is you're going to be getting your handbooks, and the handbooks outline all these policies. So please read the introduction to your handbook, including issues like extensions and tutorial absences and so on and so forth. So you don't have to necessarily get everything down right now. It's all going to be in the handbook, and so you can always consult that.
Awesome. What a great answer. Our next, this is another question about the FYP essay, which is a little philosophical. So I hope the panelists have time. Will our essays be more opinionated pieces or comparative? For example, will our essays use more first or third person language? So I don't know which one of you wants to start, but I'm kind of loving all these questions about what the mythic beast of the FYP paper is.
So I could start a little bit. So an essay, what we're looking for is an essay with a thesis. And a thesis is a claim. And in that sense, it's your opinion, but an opinion that is doing work. That is to say, that's saying something about the material that helps to explain something going on in it. So this is your interpretation, your reading, but, you know, it needs to have evidence to support it. It needs to have an argument to establish it. So an opinion, just like, you know, I don't like Odysseus, he's an ugly guy. Sure, you can have that opinion, but if that's your essay, that's not going to do very much. You need to be able to have an opinion, a view, a claim, an insight, an interpretation that you then go on to establish and show has explanatory power in being able to unravel, give insight to something important, something exciting going on in that text. It can be critical, it can be positive. There's all sorts of ways of doing that, but it needs to be something that is backed up by evidence and support and argument. I don't know. I'm sure we can have a long discussion about this.
We did just get quite a few other questions, so I think Maria, Tim, if you can say something really quick about this
Oh,
question.
yeah, the second part of the question, whether it was first person or third person
Mhm.
language. So I think that's basically comes down to the preference of the tutor. And there'll be variety there, I think. I think most tutors will probably say, if it helps you, you know, to build an argument, if you use the pronoun I, then go ahead. But generally speaking, I think academic essays are probably better explored in third person language.
Tim, do you have anything you want to say?
I think my colleagues have covered that out, so I'm happy to leave it there.
Perfect. So we have a question which I think Neil partially answered earlier. Will any materials like lesson plans, notes, resources, playlists be shared with students? And if so, on what platform? So my understanding is the FYP students will get their handbooks with the lecture schedule and all the policies. The book list has already been released and you can find it on our website. Are there any kind of other resources, or is there a note taker over the course of the year?
Yeah, I
So how are
can.
those notes made available?
Sure. So the program does employ a note taker who usually takes a couple of days to get started, but will be there in place for the duration of the program. Access to those notes is available as an accommodation through the Associate Director of Student Support. So if you need access to those notes, you would set up a meeting with me, or you would email me and request them and explain the reasons, and we can talk out whether or not that's justified and get you access. Things like lecture slides are typically posted the day of the lecture, if not earlier in some cases. So those materials typically you will have access to after the fact, and everyone will have common access to that. Maria, do you want to speak to the playlist availability?
Yeah, there hasn't been an official platform for that. There have been requests by students. I've not managed to publish it, but I will make a better effort this year. And maybe I can do it at the end of each term. I can just upload the playlist onto Brightspace, which is the platform where we share all important information with students. So that is, for example, where you would find lecture note, the PowerPoint slides for the lectures. This is also where you find all FYP related announcements. They're always posted on Brightspace, and your email is linked, or you can set it up so that that any of the announcements on Brightspace come to your email inbox right away. And we would strongly urge you to set that up. Yeah.
Yes, the lesson here is that we will always make this information available to you. All you have to do is ask, but do check your Brightspace and your email first, is all we ask. Check first, it's probably there. The next question we have is, if we are given a quote which we need to discuss in our essay, can we still do some extra research to aid the development of our ideas and refer to other texts to compare, contrast with the FYP reading? Or are we supposed to solely use what we already know?
That's a good question. So what we generally tell students is that the goal here is for you to establish yourself as a reader of these primary texts. And so we are really kind of encouraging you to make that your way of developing your essay. But sometimes you need a bit of help with that. So if you want to, you can consult secondary literature. You should then include it in your bibliography, but it's not going to improve your grade to have done any of that. Your tutor's not going to be impressed by that. But if you need to do that, then you should do it, and you should include it in your paper. But what we're really focusing on is your reading, your interpretation of that text, that book, that poem, that play that you are engaged with in the essay. And that's where our focus is primarily on. So consult if you need to, but that's what we're going to be looking at.
Except for 2 essays.
That's right. There's 2 essays. There's a position paper at the end of the first term, and there's and then there's your research paper at the end of the second term, and that's where we sort of encourage you to explore the world of secondary literature and develop some techniques in relationship to that. But I'm talking about sort of where we're going to be starting the year at any rate.
Awesome. So we have another question here. I don't think we've touched on these. Do we have midterm evaluations, and what do they look like? We've talked about oral exams and essays, but I don't think we've really discussed what the midterm looks like yet.
Yeah, so we are not. Last year we didn't have a midterm examination, and this year again we don't have a midterm examination. We're still having debates about the efficacy of the midterms, and in terms of evaluations. Well, we're a full year course, so the moment of evaluation in the middle of our course is actually over the Christmas break. So you're going to come back from the Christmas break, and there you will receive a transcript of your grade in its pure raw number. It won't be a letter grade. That is the result of the work that you've done in the first term. And you're going to have a meeting scheduled with your main tutor to talk about your progress over the course of the first term and what you're going to be doing in the second term. And one of the things, again, I always want to point out to people is that we emphasize the second term over the first term if it's to your advantage, so that growth and development, you're kind of, in a way, the first term is where you kind of set the foundation, but it's really in the second term that you build the house. And that's what that meeting and that information helps you to do, is to move from those foundations to the actual house construction. And so there's a lot of excitement in that development. So I don't know whether that helps.
I think that answers the question really well. And our last question is a question I don't think I've ever received before, but I'm curious to see if it's changed. So the question is, I know King's Dallas platforms are generally more Microsoft based, but is it mandatory to use those platforms? If we're adding our papers to Brightspace, assuming they'll be marked digitally, does it matter if we use Google Docs, for example, instead? My understanding is that, or at least when I was in FYP, way back when, 10 years ago, you still handed in the papers, a hard copy of the paper. Is that still the case?
No, we now submit everything online through Brightspace. But this question about different formats, I don't actually know the answer to that. Maybe Tim or Maria does, but that is something we will certainly clarify. But maybe Maria, you know better than me.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't probably have the full answer, but I know that you cannot. It has to be a Word file. I think Google Docs will only work if you've downloaded the Word file first, or the text file. I don't know, because I remember I had a student submit something on Brightspace, and it was a Google Docs form, and it wasn't downloadable. So I don't know if that was just a mistake on their end or what it was. But for example, if you use a Mac, you can't upload a Pages file. I know that it has to be Word.
Yeah. So when you become a student,
Everybody,
we are. Oh, sorry.
you go ahead, Kaylee.
Oh, when you become a student, you get access to the whole Microsoft suite. So you get access to like Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint. So if it's a question of like accessibility, you will be given access to those programs so that you can use them. Generally speaking, it will most likely have to be a Word document. I don't think Google Docs will work, as Maria said. Maria, did you have anything you wanted to add, or?
No, just only that, I mean, there was sort of an assumption that, or the student said, presumably the papers will be marked online. That actually is not fully the case. Some of us mark the papers, like print them out, mark them on hard copy by hand, and then upload that version. But other tutors will use the Brightspace tools to mark the papers digitally. But so there'll be a variety.
Awesome. So it looks like we don't have any more questions in the Q&A or the chat. I'd like to thank the panelists and my colleague Keenan for joining us today. And I'd like to thank you, of course, for taking time out of your evening to join us and talk about FYP. Thank you so much for spending time with us. You will get a recording of this webinar so you can refer back to it. And of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us directly at registrar@ukings.ca. And we all look forward to meeting you in the fall because we expect to see you
Absolutely.
there. Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Katie.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.